What is the implication of the rectangular rainbow? By SteampunkWilson. Read by Niche-lle. Summary. After witnessing a same-sex wedding with his own eyes, the captain has an urgent question he needs to ask Alison about modern-day affairs, particularly how an affair between two men would be treated. Alison, might I bother you for a moment? Alison looked up and tried to blink the stress out of her wary eyes. The wedding was over now, as was the snowstorm, which had commanded that the guests stay the night. Needless to say, nobody in the party had been thrilled about staying over in a creepy, groaning, haunted house in the middle of nowhere, so had all left immediately as the torrent of snow stopped outside, leaving Alison and Mike to clear up the mess. Alison rubbed her eyes before realizing it was the captain who had spoken, hovering somewhat awkwardly beside the door. He looked slightly tense, if a ghost ever could look tense. She nodded at him and smiled briefly. "Sure, what is it?" she asked. The captain stepped briskly into the room. She could see it now. He was definitely tense, or at the very least, nervous. Hell, she could use a break herself. Alison sat down in one of the still-standing chairs as the ghost approached her. The captain stopped when he was about 5 paces in front of her, wringing his hands nervously. His sharp eyes refused to meet her gaze, and Alison felt a small frown drift onto her face. "What's the matter?" she asked. "If you're here to tell me that some stuffed cat or stuffed bird is missing again, then I will—" No, nothing of the sort. Captain dismissed her queries with a short wave of his hand. "This is a rather, personal matter of mine that I was hoping to discuss." "Personal matter?" Alison repeated. Now she understood why the ghost looked so unsettled. When it came to the captain, it was usually business first and personal matters nowhere near second. In fact, personal matters were considered so insignificant that they weren't even granted a rank of number. "Yes, this is about the wedding yesterday." He glanced this way and that, refusing to meet her gaze. "I was wondering about a rather specific detail. 2 specific details, in fact." "Okay," Alison remarked, rubbing her sore back. "Which are?" "The brides," the captain remarked. "The fact that there were 2 of them." Alison sighed and rubbed her forehead. She was too tired for this crap. "Not this again. Okay, look, I don't care what year you lot were born in, but times have changed since then. Sam and Claire love each other, and—" "No, it's not that the captain cut her off. "That I have a problem with it. I just had a question." "If you've come to ask me how they, consummate, then don't bother. Fanny already—" The captain made a thoroughly disgusted face, which cut her off mid-sentence. "Okay, what do you want to ask?" The captain looked like he was bordering on fear now. His hands wouldn't stay still, and his eyes were focusing on anywhere but Alison, mostly the floor. When he spoke again, he had to draw in a breath of air before he could even get the words out. "Could 2 men do that?" he asked quietly. "Could what?" Alison leaned closer. The captain rolled his eyes and repeated the question, only slightly louder. "Could 2 men do that? Could they marry each other, not a bride in sight, and live a happy life together without worrying what people would think?" Alison paused for a moment to unpack what he had said, and then her eyes widened in realization. Yeah, gay marriage was legalized in 2013. Why?" She stood up and went over to him, making sure that her expression was kind and not condescending or exhausting. "Captain, is there something you want to tell me?" The captain still wouldn't meet her gaze. "His name was Lieutenant Havers," he murmured, very quietly. I loved him, very much. He had to leave, however, to serve in his place on the front lines in Africa. I would have accompanied him if I had been able to. I doubt it would have made much of a difference. He was shot and killed within 3 days of arriving in the country." "Oh, Captain," Alison gasped, putting her hand on the ghost's shoulder. That's terrible." The captain nodded and looked up and straight ahead. "All water under the bridge now, Alison, I can assure you. I've had more than 50 years to recover. Seeing those 2 lovely women together at their wedding, it made me wonder what things would have been like if we had been able to live as you do in this time." "Captain," Alison raised an eyebrow at him, "are you telling me that you're gay?" The captain frowned at her and said, "If that is the term used these days, then yes, I have known for years that I am—" He stumbled slightly on the words, but he continued, "a homosexual." Alison nodded, smiling. "Nice. No judgment here. You just do you. Or rather, do men." Privately, she wished Mike had been around to hear her excellent joke. The captain didn't seem amused. He ignored her wordplay altogether. "I must say that this is the first time I've ever been able to tell someone who wasn't, He faltered on his wording again. "Gay as well?" Alison offered, and he nodded. "It's fine, Lots of people struggle with it at first. One of my old high school friends was so nervous to tell me and Mike he actually pissed himself." She chuckled briefly at the memory. "But we're cool with it. I bet if I told Mike, then he'd—" The captain quickly held up a hand to cut her off. "No need for that, my dear. I want to make it clear to you that this is a realization, a confession, that I have only just told you, and no one else. I would, appreciate it if you could keep my secret." "What? Come on." Alison grabbed her phone out of her pocket. "Captain, this isn't something you need to hide in this century. There's a whole thing nowadays, it's called gay pride, where people like you and Sam and Claire go to celebrate what makes them different and are happy to be themselves. Look here." She pulled up a website and held her phone out for him to see. "This one's local." The captain frowned as he peered at her mobile phone screen. "What is the implication of the rectangular rainbow?" he mumbled. "Oh, that's the pride flag," Alison said, zooming in on the image. "There's a whole bunch of them that mean all different things, but that's the main one. It's just, a flag that people use to show haters that, yeah, we're here and we're not afraid of you anymore. A symbol. Something for them to stand under." "No, sir," the captain stood up straight, clicking his heels together like the soldier he was. "The only flag this soldier will stand under is the Union Jack." "Oh, come on," Alison grinned at him. "At least give it a try. This is part of you, and you should be proud of it. Look, here." She scrolled down on the screen. "There's a section here where people share their experiences, coming out, first crush, their dating lives." She trailed off once she realized that this was making no sense to him. "Maybe you could read it, or, add something yourself." "Such as?" The captain frowned briskly at her. "I was a captain during the Second Great War. I fell in love with my lieutenant, and we lived in fear of other men on the base finding out that I couldn't bring myself to love again since—" He drew in a sharp breath, cutting himself off. "Yeah, okay, maybe not one of my best ideas," Alison admitted. "But at least admit it to yourself. You're a gay man. That's not something you should hide." The captain hummed under his breath, looking lost in thought. He stared at the wall for a few moments before breathing deeply and saying under his breath, "I am gay. I am a gay man." "That's it," Alison said encouragingly. "Look, I really need to clear up in this room, but you could stay a bit longer if you want. Talk about stuff." The captain shook his head firmly. "No, I think that's enough, personal revelations for the day. I think I'll go work on my timing. Gotta knock off a few seconds here and there." "Sure," Alison nodded. "You do that." He saluted her and left the room, a smile on his face. He looked happy for the first time in a while, and it suited him. Alison smiled to herself, happy to have helped one of her friends, and then turned back to the mess of a room that the wedding guests had left behind. Right, this mess. Bending down to pick up her trash bag again, she sighed. Just another day in the haunted house. Hello! Yes, this is very different from the genre of stories I've done so far. I got into the BBC version of Ghost recently, and I tell you, it feels so wrong to read this without an English accent. But I can't do an English accent. I love the captain, and when I found this story, I was like, I want to read this. Well, leave a comment, tell me what y'all thought, and I will see you in the next one.